Welcome to the Turning Stone Show, where we discuss topics of the human experience. We're here to offer conversation, ask questions, and explore. We invite you to join us on this journey in the discovery of purpose in life. I'm David Marsh, and here with me as always is Jesse Ferrell and Justin Maman. Today's episode is about turning stones, finding meaning underneath the surface. Recently, we went out on the streets of Phoenix in a public market space, and we asked people, what's the meaning of life? And here's some of their answers.
To find your sense of self-love and then just share that with as many people as possible through every interaction every day.
I think that that's different for every single person.
To make a difference and the biggest impact as possible.
Everyone has a different path and has different meaning.
It's more of a karmic ride, so if you stay diligent and do the right things by you.
Love. I don't know. I really don't know. I have to think about that.
Good health. That's about it.
Take care of yourself, your family, and be a contributing member of society.
Life satisfaction, being satisfied with what you do and who you love.
For me, it's based on my creator, and which would be God, the creator of the universe. So he has already, I guess, given us our purpose.
You let me know when you figure that out. It's just a journey.
To be successful.
To be happy and nice to others.
We are here to make a change in the world and to make the world a better place. That's what we're here for.
To try to evolve as much as I can, to open up to anything new.
The meaning of life pertains to the significance of existence. So we human beings are then faced with some fundamental questions. Why are we here? What's the purpose? What's the meaning? So for Turning Stones, we're looking for the meaning underneath the surface of things. What do you think about the meaning of life? How does it make people feel? How does it make people think?
I think that if you look at children, that's, the origin, right? That's where it starts. So child is born, they're having this experience, and suddenly they begin to, they have a name, you call them by their name, they're like, I am this. And then they look around them and they say, I am not that, right? And then you start to form that identity. And you start asking the question, well, where did I begin? Where do I end? What happened before me? What's going to happen after me? And who am I and where am I going? So, I think that's where it all starts.
I think that we spend our whole lives looking for meaning. We put meaning in everything that we do, all of our experiences, our relationships, compliments that we get, things that we do that are wrong. And as we continue to put meaning towards those different things, we see what resonates with us, what doesn't resonate with us. And I think that the meaning of life is always changing as well.
There's three different ways to approach meaning. Science offers one aspect of meaning, or how did we get here? Philosophy offers another meaning of how did we get here? What are we doing? And religion offers another reason why we're here, meaning science has quantum mechanics. It shows the history of the universe coming from a single point, and there was rapid acceleration, there was inflation, a bunch of scientific principles which I am not an authority on, and I'm not here to give a full explanation of science, but there's things in science we find that give meaning. There's things in philosophy. What's the greater good? There's theism versus nihilism. We're either here because there's a theistic God purpose, or there's no purpose, but we're here. And then religion offers us an order versus disorder. You're either on the side of God, or you're on the side of not God. And so a lot of people get their meaning, what is life about, kind of from this perspective.
Well, a lot of people will say when you have these conversations, they'll say you're being too philosophical by asking the question at all, which is ironic because every single worldview that exists has a philosophy that underlies it, right? So philosophy is so important. Everything is philosophy. And I actually had a teacher that once said that PhD should be the beginning of your education, not the end.
Wow, yeah.
Right? Because really you're learning all of these supposed facts, and then at the end you started exploring the assumptions that those facts are based on, rather than exploring those first and then leading yourself into an understanding. So, yeah, philosophy is really important, and I think that if more people spent time asking those questions, we wouldn't be going through life directing ourselves or orienting our lives based on a bunch of assumptions that we haven't even explored, that we don't even know where they came from and why we're doing what we're doing. I think a lot of the world's issues would be more easily solved that way.
How much, what would you say, how much of the philosophy, though, is, in people's conversations about that, is commingled or muddled with the religious points of views or judgments?
I mean, you could say that religion is a sort of philosophy, right?
Yep.
You know, the philosophy, philosophical aspect of it is, what is the meaning of life? What we started this conversation with. And you and I could have that conversation and we start answering it. And then once we internalize those answers and form a system, that's a religion. So, you know, I think if you follow, you know, if you follow the line of progress that leads to what a religion is, religion has to begin somewhere. You know, it's not a given. You can't find, religion is not a plant, or, you know, it's not something that you're finding in the natural world. You're just seeing that as part of the human social evolution. And
so how does religion begin?
I think you're framing your existence here based on what you see.
Yeah.
And I've heard it explained before that the rain came down from the heavens, and so we looked up and said, well, there must be somebody up there that provides the rain.
Right.
And then we realized that the sun came out and the crops grew, and there must be some force outside of ourselves, because sometimes it rained and sometimes the sun came out. So we must offer a sacrifice. We must do something to appease the forces. And then I think from there, we just evolve through this process of, we have to find out what's greater than ourselves, and somehow our ego takes control, and we have to be able to try to control those forces to get what we want. So we want fruits and vegetables to grow on the ground, and if we appease these forces, the problem with that is you can't control the forces. You try to control the forces, and maybe that's one of the fundamental problems with human beings, is we try to control all of our circumstances.
Well, and really that's been a key to our survival, is our ability to influence our environment. That's what agriculture is based on. That's how modern civilization formed. And even as we're having this conversation, I feel myself wanting to provide a solid answer that satisfies you, right? That satisfies my audience. Is like, I want to give you that answer. What is the answer to this question so that we can move on? When really, if you look at the last 50 years and the explosion of technological advancements, which are forms of answers to these questions, right? Everything that's happening is the way that human beings collectively and individually have decided to answer this question of where we're going. And at each turn, you feel like satisfied for a moment. And you're like, oh, we've got it, we're good. We don't have to do anything else.
It's our craving for certainty.
And then it just keeps going, and there's more questions. Every solution leads to a new problem. And the only answer I can think of is that we're just in it for this process. There's just this process, we're in it, and we're never not in it.
I would call that the expansion of the human journey. We're always evolving and expanding and learning and seeking and putting meaning to different situations, and putting meaning to what has us be fulfilled, even if it's in the moment.
Well, that brings up a great point.
And that's going to change.
That brings up a great point. The process of evolution. So if we are evolving, that means we're moving from one point to the next. That means there's some sort of a journey or an arc here.
There's a trajectory.
There's a trajectory.
Right.
And if we look at the universe, we see that it started from a single point, a singularity, and it began to expand. It went from something that was unorganized to something that was organized. Molecules are made of atoms.
Who says it was unorganized?
If we look at the expansion, we went from something and expanded, and from there it grows into galaxies, solar systems, and the concept of the universe.
When we look at that, and you can see like a microcosm, you know, when you first asked me the question, I said, look at children, right? We have this incredible advantage as conscious beings to both observe ourselves and observe each other in real time. And you look at children, and that's like the microcosm of the macrocosm. You're trying to understand the origin of the universe and follow the history of the universe in time and space back to its, you know, inception, when really all you have to do is pay attention to a human being, the process of birth, and then the growth process through that, and then the disintegration of it. You know, you look at a flower or a tree, and that's the microcosm of what we're talking about. You can see it in everything.
How young would you say as a child that you're actually, I don't know that you're even conscious of it, but even unconscious, that you start engaging in these kinds of questions where you start putting meaning to life and wondering why you're here and what's up, rather than just the natural, like, I'm a kid, I just want to play, and when is dinner, and why do I have to go to school, and where's my mom or where's my dad, and why is my brother here?
Oh, I mean,
I feel like you're doing a good job of describing consciousness or awareness, because at some point we human beings realized, I am aware that I'm aware.
Yeah.
And some people say that's the differentiation between an animal kingdom and a human being species, is that we're aware that we're aware. We create art.
Well,
music.
I don't even know that we're aware for a long time. I
There
mean, I think
are different levels of consciousness, agreed.
I think that a lot of us are just existing,
yeah,
and have no awareness that there's any purpose or rhyme or reason to anything.
But for that purpose, I have people in my life that their purpose is to get up every day, go to work, come home, watch TV, and they met their purpose and goals for their day.
Yeah. Well,
and hence is the meaning of life for them.
And that's their meaning, and they're happy and satisfied, and it works for them.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
It works for them.
That's why they're here.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they're, I would question, even inside of that for everyone, is I would question and ask, like I noticed when we were doing the filming on the street, there were so many people that we talked to that really had no idea what the meaning of life is, or what their purpose is, or why they're here, or where do we get our meaning from. I find that we often aren't taking the time to think about, what is my purpose? How do I find my purpose? And what is the meaning of my life? Why am I here? That's not a question that we spend time thinking about. And I find for myself that as you begin to think that, there's different ways of being able to tap into yourself, to really listen to yourself, to find your purpose. I think for myself, that's the only way you actually find what is the meaning. And you have to find those answers within you. And there's ways to do that, to begin to notice, what are you passionate about? What makes you happy? What is important to you? When you're doing particular activities, how do you feel when you're doing those activities? What are the people around you experiencing when you're doing those activities? So I think oftentimes we choose, our careers and who we are around, or what have you, activities that we do based on pleasing other people around us, rather than really tapping in and like, okay, is this something that makes me happy? Am I experiencing happiness when I'm doing this project? Can I create happiness inside of something that I don't necessarily like to do, because it is something that needs to be done? Like, as a kid, I have to go to bed at night. Well, if I get really good sleep, it's going to help me be happy tomorrow. I'm going to have energy, and I'm going to be able to do it all over again.
But did you actually think of that when you were like an 8-year-old kid?
Not at all. But as an adult, what can you do? Like, I don't necessarily like dusting.
Yeah.
It's not something I want to do. And by not having dust around, is it going to help my allergies? Am I going to breathe better or whatever? Like, is it going to be more pleasant? It's like, so can I create happiness dusting rather than complaining about dusting? I remember often early on in my practice of being a massage therapist, I found myself complaining about how much laundry I had to do and all washing the sheets and everything. I'm like, oh my God, I was like complaining. I'm like, why am I complaining? The more sheets I get to wash, the more people I get to make a difference with, the more money I'm making. And that's how it works. And so I completely switched my context to finding joy and happiness in being able to do laundry because it served a purpose. Now, there's also other options. Hire a linen service so you don't have to do laundry. That also made me very happy.
Nice.
So there's lots of options. But anyway.
Yeah. I mean, your comment about being a kid and just not thinking about those things, I think that underestimates the innate human quality of awareness, of wonder and curiosity. Because that is what I feel what embodies our childlike essence.
Yeah.
And I think that's as adults, once our world and our consciousness has constructed our world in such a way where we start believing that it's solid, then we forget how malleable it was when we were children.
That's awesome.
Right? And I think that if you're a parent of a young child and you actually stop to pay attention, you see that those moments are taking place all day long and that those questions are coming at you at 1,000,000 miles an hour all day long. So it's innate. And, on the surface, again, this is a Turning Stone show, so we're looking beneath the surface. If you're not paying much attention, it may look like children are, just playing in dirt and just being, just non-intentional, like they're just randomly going and moving through the world. But if you do believe that there is a driving force in the universe, then that driving force permeates everything. And you can actually start noticing that in children. I know with my own daughter, she's 4. I mean, ever since she could talk, every question that she has that comes out of her mouth is, why do we, why? Parents go crazy with that because your kids want to know. Your kids want to know, what am I doing here? Why do we sit at the dinner table when we eat? Why do we say prayers? Why, and these are all like, we assume that we've been doing it for so long. We assume, oh, well, this is just what we do. And that is the answer that we give children.
That's right, because it's easy. You just want to be quiet.
This is just what we do. Shut up already.
Yeah. And there's as you're saying that, I'm realizing there's the unasked questions where they are asking those questions internally. And even without recognizing, you're answering those questions as a child inside of you by noticing your surroundings and why particular things are they are. And I think there's an unconsciousness to, you begin to develop your own sense as a child. You begin to develop meaning by your surroundings. And so the question would be for myself as a parent and to every parent is, what is in your surroundings that is influencing the meaning that we begin as a child to develop? Why are we here? What is all the questions that we have begins to, I think, stimulate from our surroundings.
I think the nature versus nurture. I know for myself, wonder and curiosity that you were talking about is absolutely the most important and profound thing in my life. I was given a narrative as a child, a theistic narrative, that there's a God and we must spend our lives worshiping and appeasing this God because he loves us so much. But if we don't do or measure up or meet the requirements of this God, we won't be able to spend eternity with him. And that has shaped my entire meaning of life. If I don't do what's required, if I don't get it right, I will be separated from this all-powerful life source, and I don't want to do that. So if you would have asked me years ago, what's the meaning of life? I would have said, it's an easy answer. You
got to get somewhere.
You worship God, so you spend your whole life doing that so you can get out of here and get to be there.
Right. Because this place is imperfect, and we're trying to get somewhere perfect so that way we can feel fulfilled, because there's no way we could possibly feel fulfilled in this imperfect existence.
And we do that. We play that scenario over and over into our lives where we showed the disconnect between each of us by, well, I'm not going to hang out with you because you live on the west side of town, or I'm not going to hang out with you because you're in Old Town Scottsdale, or you live in the ritzy side of town, or you're not wearing the right kind of clothes, or you're a hippie or whatever, or this is where you went to school or didn't go to school, you have an education. We can find so many different ways to disconnect us from everyone around us and to play the judge and jury for why we're going to have people in our lives, why we're not going to have people in our lives, down to the car we drive, to being on the street and experiencing, even while we're driving, that we are disconnected from everyone around us, versus where we are connected. They happen to be on the road at the very same time that you're on the road, and you're all going to a particular destination, and yet we're all still connected in that journey wherever we're going. And oftentimes those journeys collide in ways that we don't want them to collide, and then you have a whole new relationship that begins.
Exactly.
This is just so many sparks are going off.
Part of what I wanted to say on that is that I remember having this conversation several times with my sister, not so much the meaning of life, but that inquisitive nature that we have as children. And I find I grew up being very much an introvert, and my sister oftentimes describes herself still as being an introvert. And I gave her 3 words. I'm like, look, in every situation, be more outward focused. So as an introvert, you're inward focused, worrying about what someone else is thinking based on all the judgments that we have on ourselves and the judgments we think others are placing on us. So when you can be more outward focused and you're thinking about not what the next question is, you're thinking about ways that you can be interested in the person that you're in front of, be intrigued by what they're talking about, be inquisitive. And so I take those 3 words and bring that into every conversation, especially for an introvert. Or even, I think that's a childlike behavior, a behavior that we have as kids. We're interested in what's going on. We're intrigued by what's going on. We're engaged in what's going on. So bringing that as an adult and bringing, I think it's a great practice to have, is to bring that outward focus into every single person we're with. And that begins for myself. The more I practice that, I notice it does take the focus off of me, the attention off of me. It allows me first off, it allows me to understand the connection that we have and why we are here. So it's not that I'm necessarily putting meaning to it. I'm just engaged in the process and the journey of, why are we here? Mm-hmm. And I think always being in that intrigue and that inquisition is what keeps things moving.
It's good.
For me, that raised so many different points, and I'll take
Bells and whistles were going off everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere.
Sparks,
oh my God!
Sparks were
I don't
flying.
know if you guys all saw that, but they were flying out of my head. Okay, so first let's bring it back to approval seeking. As adults, we realize we're moving towards individuation our whole life, right? And as adults, we're like, all right, I have to become this one me, this empowered me self. And seeking approval inhibits me because I am looking for your permission to be myself, and I don't want that. I want to give myself my own permission to be myself. However, the approval-seeking process is part of our growing up, and it's survival-based, because as children, if we don't have our parents' approval, then we don't get our needs met, and we don't survive. So it's built, approval-seeking is built into us, and we learn to seek approval from those who are going to provide us with the resources we need to survive. And we do that in business. We do that in our personal relationships. You see that in high school and middle school or college or any other social forum where popular people are gravitated towards because those people have the most influence and others want their influence for their own benefit. And it starts with children and parents, right? So that was the first thing that came up. The second thing that came up is, those questions that we ask, the curiosity, the investigation.
I say it starts even with children and adults. Parents aren't always around.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because children, that's our nature. Human beings are born in the most vulnerable state of nearly all species. So it's literally wired in us to need that social connection, and that's where that seeking approval, in a sense, comes from, at least in one perspective. And that leads me into the next thing, which was talking about asking questions and being curious. Now, if you have primary caregivers that engage, like you said, that actually encourage that, then you continue on that journey, but for a lot of us, that's overwhelming. For a lot of caregivers, we are focused on survival. You look at Maslow's hierarchy, we don't start doing this contemplation thing unless we can essentially feel secure in the fact that we know where our next meal is coming from, essentially, right? For a lot of parents, it's like, I don't have time for this. I don't have time to sit here and answer your questions exploring the meaning of life because I don't have time to ask them and explore them myself.
Yeah.
I have to get to work. I have to go to the grocery store. I have to pay the bills. This is great. Go play outside.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's really a matter of.
So then we discover that on our own.
Right.
It does become our environment. Like we are then figuring out things on our own.
Yeah.
And that's where our meaning comes from, oftentimes.
I think a lot of the meaning that people have in life can be a fear-based meaning, where I am afraid to do anything outside of the norm, outside of what I feel safe to do.
Right.
And I feel that if you approach life with wonder and curiosity, that if you approach life with the concept that it's going to be okay, in the end, it's all going to be okay.
I love that, of being able to explore life with wonder and curiosity.
You can do that if it's all going to be okay at the end. But if you're afraid of facing eternal condemnation because you missed it or something happened, you cannot have wonder and joy. And I would say ultimately, you can't have love. You can't love some being that is going to punish you if you don't get it right, but you don't know exactly how to do that.
Well, I heard today, I was actually listening to a parenting podcast, and they were also talking about relationships and dating, and how the relational world has just evolved in such a short span of time. Gender roles have changed, and they were talking about incidents of divorce and just a whole wide range of topics, and how when we're raising our children now, kind of what we're modeling for them and so forth. And one of the things that was brought up was, the reason why dating and marriage and relationship is so different now is because we have so many options. And that goes, that speaks to the heaven and hell and why we have religion. It is challenging to not have an answer and to not have simple framework to guide you through life, because you have to explore this vastly complex world on your own, in a sense, and there aren't really any definitive answers. It's not right or wrong for you to get married. It's not right or wrong for you to have 1 kid or 5 kids. It's not right or wrong for you to believe in Jesus or Allah or to follow the path of the Buddha. None of that is right or wrong. And all of a sudden, it's just blown wide open, and it's like, can someone please give me an answer here? I want to know what to do.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
why we
I
seek
think that
experts.
people actually, I disagree on one of those points, is that I think people don't have answers. And because we do have so many choices. And so then what begins to happen is we begin to just check out.
Yeah.
And so then, as we noticed, when we were filming on the street, it's like, people don't know.
Yeah.
people don't stop and think about and check in with themselves, why am I in this marriage? Why am I deciding to get married? Why am I dating this guy or this girl? Or why am I in this job? You just check out and you just get one day and go to the next day and go to the next day. And you don't really take time to contemplate and think about, why am I here? Why am I doing all of this every single day? Because we are hit by so much stimuli in the outside world that we never take time to really check into ourselves. That is the only place that matters to find answers, is within yourself. What matters for you?
So for me, the whole meaning, the whole purpose, the whole journey of life is to experience and to enjoy. And I think love is really important. I think having peace is really important. And I know for me, when I had to be under a system of feeling like I was under the pressure of I had to perform for some sort of a theistic deity and I had to get it right, that put me in a position of fear. And so I will say that was a fear-based meaning of life, and I didn't enjoy that. I now feel like I have grown and evolved and awakened to a point where I realize this life is to be journeyed and experienced and enjoyed and loved. And for me, the meaning that I have for life, the highest meaning for me is unselfish love. How can I love other people? If you will, the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. How can I be light and love and kindness? And I would say for me, that's how I try to approach my daily journey, and that's what grounds me in my meaning.
For me, the meaning of life is to live fully in every single moment. How can I, and then questioning myself is like, how can I let go of all the meaning that I have, that I've placed, and actually be in the moment? And in those moments, I get to choose to be happy, to experience love, to experience peace of mind. It's how I describe it for myself is it's in those moments when I get to check in with myself and find that it's the same energy and experience that an athlete feels when they're catching the ball and they made the touchdown, or when you're in a concert and you're singing. There's nothing else happening in life but what is in that moment, and for me that's pure bliss. And that's the meaning of life for me, is to find those moments where I can be in the moment, experience love, experience bliss, and experience everything that I'm passionate about. And that spills over to everyone that I'm around, and they get to experience that and are inspired by that as well.
For me, it's the moments, and then it's connecting the moments. And it is creating meaning through relationship, and not just hedonistically seeking pleasure in this moment, but also trying to connect all the different dots so that this moment has a deeper meaning for me. And so even doing this show, doing the show in of itself is very meaningful to me. However, the journey getting here and the dreams that led to this and the intuitions and the insight and the vision and that all coming together in this moment for this, that is what gives it meaning to me.
At the end of each episode, we like to offer a turning stone, something to think about and contemplate. And now with that, we have Jesse.
So this week's turning stone is, I want to leave you with a question to think about, is what does your soul desire to experience in this moment that would have it be fulfilled? So I'm going to ask that again, is what does your soul desire to experience in this moment that would have it be fulfilled? And you can actually take that question into every single moment of your week and think about, why am I here? What is the meaning of life? How did I find meaning? What meaning do I put to different things? What meaning can I actually let go of? And practice something new this week. Find your purpose, find your meaning, let go of all meaning that you have from the past, take on what still works for you, but see if you can take on some new meaning and some new practices that would have you be fulfilled and experience the bliss and happiness and passion for your life. And remember, this is a show about questions and questioning. It is not a show about answers. Nothing that we say here is the truth. It is up to you as the viewer and the audience to find the truth for yourself.
Join us each week as we continue our conversation and journey here on Turning Stones.
Subscribe and get in touch with us. Stay connected and join in the conversation.